Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We have a fascinating stack of notes in front of us today. It's a really interesting collision of worlds. We've got these ancient Buddhist texts, some of them thousands of years old.
Right.
And we're stacking them right up against modern clinical psychology and neuroscience papers. Usually when we see that kind of crossover, we're talking about meditation or focus.
Or stress reduction.
Yeah.
But this is different.
Very different. Today we're looking at what these sources say about a specific and often pretty painful dynamic in our closest relationships. It's that overwhelming urge to fix the people we love. The feeling, the partner who won't get their health in order, the kid who is drifting, or the friend who keeps making the same mistakes. The materials we have today are calling out that instinct, the one we usually label as care, and suggesting it might actually be a form of violence.
It's a heavy reframing. We're talking about the razor-thin line between loving someone and trying to control them, and how often we really, really confuse the two.
So let's jump right in. The materials kick off with this visualization that I think just sets the stage perfectly. It's called the impatience of the gardener.
It's a striking metaphor to start with. The idea is to imagine yourself standing in a garden at dawn. It's quiet, the air is cool, the soil is damp from the rain.
Okay.
And right there in front of you is a lotus flower, just starting to unfold. It's following its own time, responding to the light.
Right, nature doing its thing.
Exactly. But then you have the concerned gardener. He rushes in, coffee in hand, anxious. He sees the flower opening slowly and he thinks, oh, maybe the petals are uneven or the color isn't quite right. He panics.
Okay.
So he grabs a trowel, starts digging at the roots to stimulate them, and then, and this is the really visceral part, he tries to physically pry the petals open with his fingers to make it bloom correctly.
Which obviously just destroys the flower. It doesn't bloom, it shreds.
It wilts immediately, just browns and dies. And this is used to illustrate a concept they call violent benevolence.
Violent benevolence.
We break the thing we love because we can't bear the pace at which it's growing.
That is a strong term. But I have to play devil's advocate here, right out of the gate. Because in the garden example, it's so obvious the gardener is acting crazy, you just don't pry open a flower.
Right.
But in real life, if I see my brother ruining his finances, or my partner ignoring a serious health issue, isn't intervening the right thing to do? Isn't just sitting back and watching the flower? Isn't that just negligence?
That is the core question, isn't it? That's where the tension is. And the sources make a really crucial distinction here. It's between intervention based on safety and interference based on, well, preference.
Okay.
The idea is that something like 90% of what we call helping isn't actually about the other person's safety. It's about our own anxiety.
So we aren't trying to save them. We're trying to soothe ourselves.
Precisely. And this brings us to the first major Buddhist concept in our notes. Upadana.
Upadana. Okay, let's unpack that. What does it actually mean in this context?
It translates roughly to clinging or grasping. But here, in relationships, it specifically means clinging to an outcome.
An outcome.
So when you're fixing your partner, telling them how to dress, how to drive, how to negotiate a raise, are you doing it because you're genuinely curious about their struggle? Or are you doing it because you have a rigid picture in your head of how they should be and the reality? It's making you uncomfortable.
It's the discomfort. I think that just hits the nail on the head. If they don't change, I feel anxious. If they look messy, I feel judged.
Right. The argument is that this urge to mold another adult is actually a defense mechanism. For us, if my child isn't successful, it reflects on my status. If my partner isn't ambitious, it threatens my security, my social standing. We're trying to stabilize our own internal world by controlling the external one, which just happens to be another human being.
Well, it's a lot simpler to admit than it is to fix. The notes use a phrase that really stuck with me. Emotional colonization.
It's a powerful indictment, isn't it?
It really is. It describes it as occupying someone else's emotional territory and just planting your flag. You're basically saying, your way of being is wrong, my way is right, and I'm going to settle here until you change to match my map.
And just think about how that feels to the person being colonized. Whether it's a child or a partner, they don't hear, I love you and I want you to be happy. They hear, I will only accept you if you become this other person.
Conditional approval, which is terrifying.
Which the psyche just experiences as rejection. And it creates what's called the double wound, the fixer. That's us with the trowel. We feel frustrated and helpless because people rarely change under pressure. We feel like martyrs. I'm doing all this for you.
Right.
And the person being fixed just feels shame and a total violation of their autonomy.
And that violation of autonomy, that is where the psychology sources in our stack really back this up. It isn't just that nagging is annoying, it's that it actually breaks the machinery of learning.
Yes, this is where the neuroscience comes in. We have notes here on the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center.
The fight or flight response.
Exactly. When a human feels judged or controlled or criticized, the amygdala just lights up. It perceives the advice as a threat. It treats your helpful suggestion about the dishwasher the same way it treats a predator in the bushes.
Wow.
And when the amygdala is hot, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain for insight, learning, logic, it just goes offline.
So literally, by pushing someone to change, we are chemically disabling their ability to learn how to change.
You're shutting down the very hardware they need to do the thing you want them to do. It reminds me of Carl Rogers, the psychologist, who said that the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. He found that unconditional positive regard was the only climate for real growth.
Okay, so we know why we shouldn't do it. It hurts them, it frustrates us, and biologically it just doesn't work. But let's look at the how, because the sources talk about the illusion of the fixed self. This seems like the philosophical root of the whole problem.
It is. In Buddhism, this is the doctrine of anattā, or non-self.
This is usually a tough one to wrap your head around. It sounds very abstract.
It can be, but in relationships, it's actually quite practical. We tend to see people as statues, like blocks of marble. We think, you are this way, you are lazy, you are messy, you are shy. And so I need my chisel to come in and carve you into a different shape.
But Anatta is saying there is no marble.
Anattā says we're not statues, we're rivers. We're a process, constantly flowing, constantly changing based on conditions. The text says you cannot carve a river into a cube. You can only learn to flow with it, or you will drown trying to dam it.
I like that, trying to sculpt water. That perfectly captures the exhaustion of trying to change someone's core personality. You fix one thing, and the water just flows around it and creates a problem somewhere else.
And it touches on karma. Now, we have to be careful here because in the West, we often misuse karma to mean, fate or cosmic punishment.
What goes around comes around.
Right, but that's not the definition here. Here, karma simply means cause and effect. And crucially, it means ownership of action. The sources emphasize that everyone carries their own karma. When you intervene to save someone from the consequences of their actions, you are actually stealing their karma.
Stealing their karma. That is a fascinating way to put it, meaning you're stealing the lesson.
Exactly. A seed needs the pressure of the dark to crack open and grow. If you keep digging it up to save it from the dark, you kill it. We often intervene to prevent someone from feeling pain, but the pain is the teacher. The friction is what's necessary for the wheel to turn. So the question to ask is, are you preventing their pain, or are you preventing your discomfort in watching them struggle?
That is the oof moment for me, because watching someone struggle, especially someone you love, is agonizing. It feels physically painful.
It is. But that agony is yours to manage, not theirs to fix for you. If you jump in and pay the debt, or apologize for them, or finish their project, you've robbed them of the chance to learn that they can survive the difficulty.
So let's get practical. The listener is thinking, okay, I get it. I'm a colonizer. I'm stealing karma. I'm stressing everyone out. So how do I stop? Because in the heat of the moment when the socks are on the floor, the urge to speak is overwhelming. It feels like it's going to burst out of you.
Right. Well, the sources offer a kind of toolkit. It starts with shifting from being a fixer to being a witness. There's a Zen saying that's referenced. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Meaning the external action might look the same.
Yes. You might still say, please pick up your socks.
Yeah.
You might still offer advice on a resume. But the internal motivation, the energy behind it, is completely different. You're no longer doing it to mold them or shame them. You're doing it to express your own boundary, your own integrity.
So it's the difference between you are a slob, pick this up, and I need a clean space to feel calm, so I'm asking you to pick this up.
Exactly. One is an attack on their character. The other is a revelation of your own need. The sources call this right speech.
There's a checklist for this in the notes, right?
There is. In the Buddhist tradition, before you speak, especially when you're correcting someone, you run it through 4 gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it timely?
I feel like necessary is the gate where most of my advice just crashes and burns. I always think it's necessary.
For most of us, yes. We think our commentary is vital for the world to spin, but usually it's just our anxiety leaking out. The text suggests a mindful pause. When you feel that urge, just stop. Physically stop, take a breath, and ask, am I responding to who this person is or who I wish they were?
That requires a lot of self-discipline.
It does. It requires giving up the role of the wise one.
There's a lovely story in the notes about a student asking a Zen master, how can I attain enlightenment? And the master just replies, who is it that wants to attain?
Turning it right back on the ego.
Right. Who is the I that needs to be the teacher here? Why do I need to be the expert on your life? When we can drop that, we can move from fixing to witnessing. The phrasing can shift from, you should do this, to, I notice you're struggling with this. What's that like for you? That is a huge shift from authority to ally, from here's the plan I made for you, to I'm here with you while you figure it out.
It's the difference between carrying someone on your back and walking beside them holding a lantern.
So now, for the advanced class, the sources introduce the 4 immeasurables. These sound a bit like Marvel superpowers.
There are actually specific meditative practices to rewire this whole relational DNA. They're the antidotes to control. 4 qualities of love that don't cling. The first is metta, or loving kindness.
Which is basically, I love you, right?
Not quite. Metta is wishing well-being regardless of compliance. It's looking at that person, even when they're being annoying, even when they're failing, even when they're rejecting your advice, and silently saying, may you be happy, may you be safe.
Even if they're doing the thing I hate.
Especially then, it breaks the link between your love and their behavior. You're training yourself to love the person, not their obedience.
Okay, that is a workout. What's the second?
Karun, or compassion. But there's a nuance here that's vital. It's wishing them freedom from their suffering, not just freedom from causing me pain.
That's the near enemy concept, isn't it?
Yes. The near enemy of compassion is pity or control. We awfully want to fix someone's pain because their pain makes us uncomfortable. True Karun is sitting with someone in the dark without rushing to turn on the lights. It's the capacity to tolerate their suffering without making it about you.
That brings us to the third one, which I think is the hardest, maybe especially for parents. Mudut.
Mudut is sympathetic joy. It means rejoicing in their happiness, even if it comes from something you don't value.
So if my kid wants to be a street artist and they're happy, but I wanted them to be a surgeon.
Mudita is feeling joy because they feel joy. It dissolves the envy and the ego need for them to be a mirror of your values. If they are happy, that is enough. You don't need to understand it to celebrate it.
And fourth.
Upekkha, equanimity. This is the big one. It means caring deeply while releasing attachment to the outcome.
Love without strings.
It's more like love with open hands. It's saying, I love you completely and I surrender my picture of how your life should look. And the text argues that this is actually true sovereignty.
Sovereignty. That's an interesting word choice for surrender.
Yes, because when you stop trying to raise other adults, you stop leaking your life force into fantasies, you reclaim all that energy, you stop being a slave to their choices. If your happiness depends on your partner behaving a certain way, you are not free, you're a hostage. Upekkha cuts the hostage ropes.
And the irony, which the science also points out, is that this is often when the other person actually changes.
It's the paradox of growth. When you drop the rope, the tug of war ends. When you stop pushing, they stop resisting. They're just left with their own gravity, and often that's when they finally find their own balance.
It sounds beautiful, but I do want to acknowledge for the listener that dropping the rope feels terrifying.
Oh.
It feels like giving up.
It feels like giving up control, yes. But the sources remind us. The rope wasn't connecting you. It was choking both of you. The real connection is what happens when you can look at each other across that space, free of demands.
I want to look at the outro of these notes because it offers us a different identity. If we aren't the gardener prying open the petals and we aren't the fixer, what are we?
We are fellow pilgrims.
Fellow pilgrims.
The text says, you are not their guide, you are not their God. You are walking the same road, stumbling over the same stones.
It levels the playing field completely.
Completely. It removes the hierarchy. The most powerful teaching you can offer anyone, a partner, a child, a friend, is not your correction. It's your own peace, your own embodied presence.
Like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree. He didn't argue with the demons.
No, he didn't try to fix them or debate them. He simply touched the earth. He stayed grounded in his own reality. And that groundedness is what dissolved the illusion.
So, if we boil this whole stack down, if you're dealing with a chaotic situation right now, a sibling in trouble, a partner who is stuck, the advice isn't do nothing.
No, not at all. The advice is be the soil, not the trowel. Tend your own ground. Be so safe, so non-judgmental, and so present that the people around you feel safe enough to unfold at their own pace.
It shifts the definition of love from being a transaction to being a container.
A container that expands to hold the world as it is, rather than shrinking the world to fit our fear.
And that is a place of real freedom.
It is the only place freedom exists.
Here's a thought to leave you with, something that wasn't explicitly in the texts but seems to be the ghost in the machine here. If you stop trying to fix everyone around you, what would you have to face in yourself? What is the silence you're trying to fill with all that advice? That might be the real project.
That's the deep dive.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.